For the first time, the FBI is talking about how a specialized unit will assist in the investigation into a suspected serial killer.
CLYDE GIBSON is charged with 2 murders and has been connected to a third. Only WLKY's Jessica O spoke with a special agent today. She's live in New Albany with some answers. Jessica?
Vicki, New Albany police say Gibson is a serial killer, and they requested help from the FBI after realizing the magnitude of this case and the possibility for more victims.
The fact that it went undetected for so long is startling.
Police believe this man is much more than your typical or average criminal. It's been an alarming realization for investigators, and it's also something Chief Sherry Knight hasn't seen before.
That would lead to the determination to ask for assistance.
So far, police say Gibson has ties to 3 dead women and say it's probable more victims are out there. That's what led police to ask the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit for help. Part of their specialized team focuses on serial murderers.
If a state or local agency has a criminal investigation that is either significant enough or time sensitive, they can contact me, and I will put them in touch with the Behavioral Analysis Unit.
Special Agent Frank Charles can't comment in detail about Gibson's case, but he does explain the goal is for police to understand every possible aspect of a criminal mind.
But it just tries to get inside of who they are and why they do what they do. Typically, the analyst will set up link analysis charts to show the relationships between the criminals or the criminals and the victims. BAU can say, this is what you need to ask this person. This is how you need to approach this person.
Gibson is charged with killing 2 women. A third was found buried in his backyard. And for police, finding out who this man is a crucial part to figuring out who else was a victim in Gibson's past.
We sit back and look and recognize the magnitude of the case and then the possibilities from this point forward.
And we're told the BAU hardly ever turns down requests for help, but at this point it is unclear if the FBI is already assisting in this investigation. Reporting live in New Albany, I'm Jessica O, WLKY News.
Thanks, Jessica. CLYDE GIBSON is a registered sex offender. In addition to the 2 murder charges, he also faces a charge for being an habitual offender. He's set to appear in court at the end of the month.
Hey guys, today we're talking about William Clyde Gibson. He's a serial killer from Indiana, and he sits on Indiana's death row waiting to be executed. He is one of the guys that likes to confess to unsolved murders to me. We're hoping to get more confessions from Clyde. A little bit of his story. He was raised up in southern Indiana. He'd been in trouble with the law for some time. Here he is. He'd been arrested in 1991. He liked to steal cars. That was his thing. And been arrested several times for those kind of crimes. He was arrested for 1 sex crime, but we know confirmed in 2002. He began, at least in 2002, he began killing. This is his first confirmed victim, Karen Hildella. Met her at a bar, picked her up in his truck, took her, sexually assaulted her, stabbed her to death, dumped her body by the river down in Louisville, Kentucky. And then we know he killed many people between 2002 and 2012, but he is confirmed in 2012 to pick up, again, Stephanie Kirk from a bar. He killed her and buried her in his backyard. And then his mother's friend, a family friend, came over and he claims interrupted one of his crimes. He was dismembering a body, and he killed one of the only people he's regretful and remorseful about, Christine Wittes. She was 75 years old. He cut off her breast, and he drove to Hooters with her breast in his pocket. And at that time, her nude corpse was in the garage. His sisters came, found the body. Freaked out, called the police. They located Gibson at Hooters. He tried to abduct a Hooters girl doing a car wash, and he was tracked down, arrested in front of Walmart. He was dragged outside of the vehicle, roughed up, hit the pavement, and they arrested William Clyde Gibson. When he hit the pavement, he broke his glasses, and these are actually Clyde Gibson's glasses that broke that day, being pulled out of the vehicle. So those are part of my true crime collection. This is Gibson at trial. And he welcomed the death penalty, said he deserved it, and he is sentenced to death in 2013. He's been there now 8 years. He claims he's killed 33. He's only really confirmed 3, so we're going to try to get as many confessions as we can from Gibson. That's our goal. He really makes some really cool stuff for me. He made me, he's a very talented guy. This is a two-sided spinning a picture frame made out of popsicle sticks. This is a violin made out of popsicle sticks. He has incredible talent. He makes this on death row with no equipment. It actually is quite impressive. He also likes to make stuff out of paper mache. This is a paper mache violin, also very well detailed. My wife likes Mickey Mouse, so he made her a Mickey Mouse, and on the chest it says "Hi Wendy," made out of paper mache and soap. I think the hands are made of soap. It's been a little banged up, but the hands look like that, and the tongue sticking out. And I asked him, why does Mickey Mouse have his hands sticking out and his hands up and his tongue sticking out? And he explained to me that Mickey is grabbing your wife's breasts. Interesting. So that's a serial killer's take on Mickey Mouse. This is when Wendy and I, my wife and I, met with Gibson. We met with him several times on death row. All of these photos will be scanned and placed on my Patreon page if you want those photos. And this is Gibson in prison with the violin he made and a cat. He does have a cat on death row. It's his pet. It's one of the programs at Indiana. Clyde Gibson is the modern day Albert Fish. Clyde Gibson is the modern day Hannibal. He's not very well known, and if he confirms, we can confirm some of these unsolved murders. He could take the upper echelons of people like John Wayne Gacy. He has bodies buried. He has breasts buried. He's going to confess to these in our interview. You're going to listen in, and I believe he is one of the deadlier killers that's come out of Indiana, and one of the deadliest serial killers in the U.S., almost ranking up there with John Wayne Gacy. He is a necrophiliac. He loves to have sex with corpses. He is a cannibal. He likes to eat parts of his victims. He likes to decapitate, dismember, and he is quite the individual. So I hope you enjoy the interview with him when he calls, and I hope you learned something about today's Albert Fish, which is, by the way, Albert Fish is right here. Today's Albert Fish, today's modern Hannibal. William Clyde Gibson, who goes by Clyde.
An accused serial killer has been convicted of murder. Now jurors must decide if Clyde Gibson will live or die. WLKY's Lauren Adams is live tonight outside of the Floyd County Courthouse. Lauren?
Rick, prosecutors are confident Gibson will receive the death penalty, calling this one of the most gruesome cases to ever come through Floyd County, saying if there was ever a case that warranted the death penalty, this is that case. What happened inside this home back in April 2012 cost an elderly woman her life. Now it cost William Gibson his too. After deliberating for less than 20 minutes inside this courtroom, where cameras weren't allowed, a jury found Gibson guilty of murder. Now that same jury will decide if he will live or die.
If there was ever a case that was relevant for the death penalty to be filed, it would be this one.
The week's testimony provided a gruesome timetable of events. Gibson, who had recently lost his mother, called 74-year-old Christine Whitus her best friend, saying he needed someone to talk to. She came to this house where she was tortured, bound with duct tape, sexually assaulted, her back broken, and then in a final cold-blooded act, one of her breasts was cut off with a kitchen knife. Gibson's defense team says he never meant to kill the old woman, but was acting under the influence of marijuana and alcohol. Prosecutors called it a planned act, labeling this one of the most gruesome cases they've ever tried.
Very disturbing, very gruesome, very difficult.
It was difficult too for a family who left the courtroom in tears. One family member simply saying justice was served.
It's at least somewhat of a sense of relief for the victims' families to be able to see 12 independent people, reach a verdict of guilty. And for them, I think that's somewhat of a relief. Again, our work's not done because now we have the second phase on Monday, and we'll look forward to that.
And the jury returns right back here first thing Monday morning to begin that penalty phase. That is expected to last anywhere from 2 to 3 days. In Floyd County, Lauren Adams, WLKY News.
Thank you, Lauren. Now, Gibson is also charged in the murders of 2 other women. Stephanie Kirk's body was found buried in the backyard of Gibson's home shortly after Christine Whitus's murder. He is also accused of killing Karen Hudella more than a decade ago. His trial for their murders is currently scheduled for January.
Here we go, guys. We're on with William Clyde Gibson.
Hello. This is a prepaid debit call from
William Gibson,
an inmate at the Indiana State Prison. To accept this call, press 0. Thank you for using GTL.
Hey there, mister.
Hey, Clyde, just so you know, I'm an idiot. I pushed the wrong button and shut you off when you called.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. Can you hear me all right?
You know what? You sound pretty good for that J player, so I think you're good. Your tablet's doing okay, so let's chat. Let's get into it.
Okay, I guess you can just ask away if you want.
I did some video right before you called where I kind of showed your violin and your stuff you've made. You're very creative. You're very talented. And let's just ask the first question. How did you get so good at making things, creativity, artwork? Like, where do you get those skills from?
I think my grandfather did that on my mom's side. He was, well, even my dad's father, he was a carpenter too. So,
Okay.
I mean, that was in the family. I mean, my grandpa on my mom's side, he was always carving little animals and different stuff like that. So I pretty well knew how to do that from an early age.
Wow. So, and everybody's always impressed that your violin over here. I have your violin in my office. The really nice picture frame you made, and the Mickey Mouse. All that stuff is just incredible.
Right.
I also showed them your picture of. I showed them the picture of us together and the picture of you and your cat. Do you still have your cat Dukas?
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
How's Dukas doing?
Dukas is big and fat.
like me.
Well, since we got our stimulus checks, I've been able to buy him all kinds of stuff. So.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, he's a very happy cat.
Wow. So, Clyde, just a real quick review of your case. You were arrested in 2012. You were convicted and sent to death row in 2013. Okay?
Right.
You had been arrested in the 90s for probably car theft, stuff like that. When do you think your first murder, when was your first murder committed? Your first murder you're convicted of is 2002, but when really was your first murder, you think?
It was in 1977 over in Europe.
1977, you were in the military over in Europe.
Right.
So you started way back in 97 or 77. You came here back to the U.S. Did you kill some people before 2002 in the U.S.?
Oh yeah. I mean,
His call failed. If we cut out, I'll have to have him call again. But now his call dropped. The reason why we're talking on his tablet and not a really nice phone, 2 reasons. Number one, a corrections officer was stabbed to death this week there at Indiana State Prison. So they're all in lockdown. So he's on a little tablet, which isn't as good quality as our regular phone calls. But secondly, the tablet isn't monitored as closely as the phone calls. So he's going to be confessing to some murders, and he's going to be, hopefully this is legit, and we can get bring some closure for some victims and their families. That's what we're all about here. So I'm about to start asking him about unsolved cases. So here we go.
an inmate at the Indiana State Prison.
Hey, buddy.
Well, that was quick.
That's okay. Your call dropped. Your call dropped or something. So.
Well, no, I was that stupid ass free call.
Oh, was it really? Okay, good. Well, good. We're back at it. So let's get back at it. So you committed multiple murders before 2002, before Karen Hudella, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so Karen Hudella. Go ahead.
One of them was in like 1985, and I didn't even hear about it. I mean, I knew about it, of course, but I never heard a thing about it until after all this went down. They said that they always suspected me of killing a girl in 1985 in New Albany, But in 1985, they never asked me about it. But I mean, they brought that up during court and stuff. I don't understand that shit.
But you were responsible. You were responsible for that death in 1985.
Yeah, but I mean, why didn't they act like they had suspected me now later on after I get convicted of this?
Right.
But they never asked me anything back then.
Who was the victim? Who was the victim?
I have no idea. They try to say it was my cousin, but who knows?
The one they're saying is your cousin, you are responsible for.
That's the one, yes.
Where was her body found?
Supposedly on some railroad tracks.
Okay. And what happened with her, Clyde? How did you meet her? What happened to her? And how'd she end up on the railroad tracks?
Well, that was just, that was one that I really don't care to really talk about a lot right now. I mean, I will later on, but not right at this point.
And why? Why is that?
Well, it's just one that, kind of gets to me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
But you did kill her, and she did end up on the railroad tracks, by the railroad tracks.
Right.
Tell me about your friend John. We've been talking about him, that you had a friend that kind of didn't really help you kill people, but he helped you dispose of bodies, correct?
Right. Yeah, his name was John Maddox.
John Maddox.
I met him a while back at my mom and dad's house when I was taking care of my mom when she had cancer.
Okay.
And I met him then.
Okay.
I was outside doing some artwork when I met him.
And how did he get to the point where he's actually helping you dispose of a body? Like, how does that even come up? And where you trust him?
Well, he was the one who started it. He initiated that kind of talk. We'd always go to his house, and he had a little apartment. We'd always drink whiskey and shit, and smoke pot, shit like that. Mm-hmm. And he just started talking about some crazy shit he did as a kid. He's a little bit older than me. Mm-hmm. And, well, I guess probably 20 years older than me, but he was always talking about different stuff that he had done years ago.
Right.
And I just felt comfortable with him. And I mean, that's the only reason I ever said anything to him.
Like, did he ever say he killed someone in the past or no?
Oh, yeah. He told me he did. But as far as, I couldn't prove it. You know what I mean?
Right. But he said he did.
Right.
So then you said...
The weird thing...
Go ahead.
The weird thing about it was his daughter was a guard at Floyd County Jail that I frequented very often.
She was a deputy, right?
Right.
What was her first name?
Tracy.
So, how do you get to the point where he comes and sees a dead body? Like, how does that happen?
Well, I had one over there, and we were just drunk and talking and shit. And it was actually the one that I had in the house when Chris came over.
Okay.
I mean, there was some before it, but this is the main one. But it was the one I had in the house, and he was helping me get rid of her. He was actually in the house when he wasn't seen by Chris, but he was in there when she came in and caught me with.
Really?
With the old girl.
He was in the house.
Yeah.
Where was he at in the house?
He was in the garage, but he was in the house.
Wow.
The house and the garage was all hooked together.
Okay, so I've been inside your house, Clyde, so I know exactly where the living room is and where the garage is. He was in the house, and he's dead. He's deceased now. He's no longer alive.
Right.
I don't know if he died of cancer or killed himself, but something happened there. Tell me about the female you were talking about. Let's talk about an unsolved case nobody knows about. What about the female from California? Talk about that.
Well, this one, she said her name was Kate, And I met her in a...
What's her name? Kate?
Kate was the only name she gave me.
Like K-A-T-E?
The only... Yeah, well, I guess so. The only... that was the only name she gave me, and I never found any kind of ID or anything in her purse. The only thing that was in her purse was money and some pamphlets on cancer and some makeup, shit like that.
Yeah.
But she didn't have no ID or nothing in her purse, and I thought that was kind of strange, but I don't know. I could tell when I met her, I was at a little bar called the Village Inn in Jeffersonville. And when I first seen her, I could tell that she was wearing a wig, you know. I mean, even as drunk as I was, I could tell she was wearing a wig.
Okay.
But she wasn't a bad-looking lady, but she was an older lady, right? I mean, she wasn't pretty or anything, but she had a hell of a body on her.
Okay.
And we just started talking, and I was buying her drinks, and she was buying me drinks, and I asked her if she'd like to go to my house because my mom was in the hospital with cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the time, my mom was actually in the hospital with cancer.
Right.
And I asked her if she would like to go to my house. And, you know, I kind of explained the situation, and she said she would, but not that night because she had a little hotel room and she didn't want to waste her money. So, and plus he was kind of drunk, and the hotel was right there in town where we was at.
What hotel was she staying at?
It was called the Wayfarer Inn.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
And we went there, and we just started having sex. But before we started having sex, she pulled her wig off. I knew she was bald-headed, and she told me when she did it that she had cancer.
Okay.
And of course, you know, I'd already told her about my mom, and she said, so, you know, she understood about that kind of stuff. And when she took her clothes off, I could tell, you know, she didn't have a hair of one on her. I guess from that radiation or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, she was super sexy. I mean, golly. She had what I always call that snapper pussy. You know, like you just sit there and she could milk it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm sure you do.
So
yeah,
you had some wild sex with her at the hotel. You went home. She stayed there, and then what happened? She came over the next day.
Well, I went and got her. I went and picked her up.
The next day.
Yeah. I went home because I was on my bike at the time, so I went home and got my car because it was kind of chilly out. I went home and got my car on my truck and went back and picked her up and took her to my mom's house, and that's where I killed her.
And so you took her to the house. Were you drinking for a while? Did you take your time with it, or did you just automatically start? Was it during sex? What happened?
Well, we was having sex on the living room floor, and we'd had sex, you know, several times, but we was having sex on the living room floor, and I started getting kind of aggressive with her, you know, kind of biting her nipples hard and stuff, and her pussy lips real hard, and she told me to stop. So she told me to stop. I don't know what just kind of triggered me, and I just went on and strangled her to death right there, right? Yeah, it was just, I don't know why I did it. I just did. I mean, I knew she had trouble. You know, it seemed to me like she was kind of looking to get in trouble. I just had that feeling.
So you were having intercourse with her. You were on top of her. She's on her back, and you strangle her from the front.
Right.
Then what happened?
And I'm biting on her nipples. Well, as I'm strangling her, I look down and I notice her nipples getting real hard while I'm strangling her. Mm-hmm. So I start biting on them real hard, and then I just keep strangling her, and she finally dies. I hear her last little breath, and then I just start eating her pussy and just all kinds of crazy stuff. Then I cut her up. You know, I mean, it
So
was
after she
just
died,
brutal.
you had sex with her for a little while longer, right?
Right.
And then you did some things to her that even shocked you. What did you do?
Well, I cut her pussy lips off and ate them. Ate her titty nipples and, you know, just different shit like that. Then I cut the meat away from her pussy all around her labia. I cut all that loose and fried it up in the skillet and ate it. I mean, I did a lot of sick shit.
You also cut up her anus.
Yes. I cut her all the way from her top of her pussy all the way down around her anus. And yeah, I ate the whole bit. After I removed her pussy, right? You know, it was a little messy from where I cut her pussy lips off.
Mm-hmm.
But after I removed her pussy and her anus, it was kind of hooked together, right? And
So Clyde, after you killed her, had sex with her, you started cutting her up, her vagina, her anus, and then what'd you do?
Well, I took it and I stuck my dick through the backside of her pussy to where my dick came out was coming out of her pussy instead of going. I used to do freaky shit like that. Standing there jacking off. And then I just threw it in the skillet and started cooking it.
And what does it taste like?
Well, it's pretty wild. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, to me it ain't. I mean, actually the lips themselves, if you cook them real crispy, they taste a lot like bacon. I mean, to be honest with you, they taste just like the fat on bacon.
Did you take her breast to Hooters just like you did Christine Wittes?
Yeah, but I stuck them in a jar of pickled eggs.
And you
I ate her nipples.
But you put the breasts in a jar of pickled eggs, and did you bury them?
Yes.
Whereabouts are they buried? What city?
They're buried in New Albany.
And how about her body? Where did her body end up?
It's in the same place, but in pieces.
Can you lead me to those things?
Yes, I could. I mean, yeah.
When I meet with you, could you tell me the location?
Yes, I could take you and give you evidence to every one of the murders that I've claimed and prove it to you with evidence. I mean, not just body parts and bone and shit like that, but like jewelry and different shit like that.
And Clyde, what year did that happen? What year, what month? Can you pinpoint when Kate disappeared?
Absolutely. It was in January, about January the 12th, somewhere around the 12th of January.
Of what year?
2012. It was the same month my mother died. That's how I remember it so well. My mom died on the 18th.
And you think it was about a week before your mom died?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when did you get arrested? What day was that? Do you remember?
I think it was April 18th or somewhere around there.
April 18th. So 3 months, February, March, April, 3 months later, you get arrested, right? You get arrested for killing Christine Wittes. You do cut her breasts off, and you do get caught with her. You get arrested in front of Walmart with the breast in the vehicle.
Right.
You had tried to abduct her. You were at. Go ahead.
They found bite marks on her labia and stuff too, where I bit her on her pussy, but they never really brought it up in court.
And you had taken her breast, put it in your pocket, and drove to Hooters. You were eating wings and fondling the breast in your pocket.
Right.
And some people, if they don't believe this, well, that really did happen because you got arrested at Walmart and there was a breast on your console, right?
Right. Yeah.
And you were all banged up, and I've got your glasses that day that you were wearing. You were pulled out of the vehicle and you hit the pavement or something? What happened there?
Yeah, when he jerked me out of the car, it was a great big old cop named Kid. He jerked me out of the van. And when he jerked me, I was drunk and I fell on my head and skidded across the pavement on the parking lot. But I mean, he wasn't actually trying to drag me across. I was just drunk, you know what I mean?
Right. And so, Clyde, when I meet with you in person, will you start to give me some of these confessions so we could close some cases?
Yes, I certainly will.
Now, if they won't let you out of prison to go out and point to these locations, do you think you could lead me to them?
Well, I may possibly be able to. We need some kind of, I guess, a Google map or something like that. I don't, it'd be kind of hard to explain to you how to get there. You know what I mean?
Is this like up by the power lines and stuff? Is that where all of the bodies are?
Right. Most of them. Not all of them, but most of them.
Where are some of the ones that aren't by the power lines?
I mean, yeah, it was like you were saying, a lot of people don't believe that I was taking them kiddies into places like Hooters and playing with them in my pocket. But, I mean, they caught me with it, you know what I mean?
Right. Did you do that a lot?
I did it all the time. I would take them to strip clubs and be paying for strippers, that had sex with strippers. And I'd actually have a kitty or a pussy in my pocket rubbing on it while I'm fucking these strippers.
Like lighthearted, which I think sort of shows what kind of an individual he is.
A convicted killer facing more murder charges comes to court with a smile. Clyde Gibson was sentenced to death just 3 weeks ago. Today in court, a judge set dates for his other murder trials, despite a motion by his defense to put the cases on hold indefinitely. Gibson's demeanor was not what you'd expect from someone on death row. WLKY's Marissa Alter is live from the Floyd County Courthouse with the latest developments. Marissa?
Vicki, Clyde Gibson trudged into the courtroom here wearing the typical orange prison jumpsuit, shackles, and handcuffs, but he also had on something else, a big grin. Courtroom today.
Yes, he smiled and waved at me. Yeah.
It's not what you'd expect from a man with an execution date, but Floyd County Deputy Prosecutor Steve Owen says William Clyde Gibson has often had that tone since his arrest.
Lighthearted, which I think sort of shows what kind of an individual he is.
A person police say is a serial killer. In October, a jury convicted him of the sexual assault and murder of Christine Whitus, his mother's best friend. Jurors recommended death, a sentence the judge upheld 3 weeks ago. Gibson's attorneys appealed to the Indiana Supreme Court. Prosecutors want to move forward and try Gibson for the murders of Stephanie Kirk and Karen Hodella. But in court today, his attorneys asked that all proceedings be delayed until there's a ruling on Gibson's appeal. Owen argued an initial decision won't come for at least a year and a half.
We may not receive a definitive ruling on the fate of Mr. Gibson until many, many years down the road, and the criminal justice system shouldn't be lagging behind that far.
During Gibson's sentencing, he asked for fast and speedy trials in the other cases, but today, as part of his attorney's argument, he withdrew that request.
I think Mr. Gibson looks at this as much as a game for him, and he's enjoying the process.
Judge Susan Orth sided with the prosecution and set Gibson's trial in the Kirk case for June 2nd. Kirk had been missing for months when police discovered her body buried in Gibson's backyard in April 2012. The discovery was made shortly after Gibson was arrested for the Whitus murder. Gibson was then linked to a nearly 10-year-old cold case. Karen Hodella's body washed up on the banks of the Ohio in 2003. Judge Orth told both sides to be ready to go for that October 27th.
These victims deserve some closure in these cases. I think the citizens of this county deserve some closure of these cases also.
Okay, so Clyde, let's just kind of wrap up here. You had confessed to a murder in Evansville, Indiana. Remember that murder we talked about on the podcast? Are you 100%? Are you 100% positive you committed that murder?
Yes.
Positive, 100%.
Yeah, Elizabeth Bannister.
Yes. And
yes.
And the lady from was the lady Kate? Was she from California? The older lady with cancer. Where was she from?
She told me she was from California, but it's like I said. I mean, I've never seen any ID or none of that stuff.
What was she in town for?
It was kind of weird. I mean,
why was she in town? Why was she in town?
She never did say. I didn't ask her. I mean, I wasn't looking for that type of thing.
Right.
The thing I was looking for was she had plenty of money because she was buying a lot of drinks, and I was almost broke.
Okay.
That's the whole reason I really killed her, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Was just for her money.
And the female in 1985, Clyde, how old was that female?
I don't really know, but she looked real young.
She looked young?
No,
you think it was one of your younger victims?
Right. Probably the youngest.
And why does that case bother you? Just tell me, why does that bother you talking about that? Because nothing really bothers you.
Well, it was just because she was so young, to be honest with you. And the fact that, it might have been a relative of mine don't help any.
Kind of shook you up.
If she was a relative, I never knew it at the time.
So that was like, wow. So anytime they questioned you about that or talked about it, you said, I didn't do that because it just bothered you.
Right. I mean, yeah.
100% positive you did that crime, 1985.
Right. Absolutely. I wanted to say a little bit about this. I got an idea of one of the reasons why I might be, committing the type of action I do. Where
right. Yeah, talk about it. Go ahead.
Pussy lips off.
Yes.
Well, I was like, I don't know, 9 or 10, I guess, and my sister had a friend, and they was like 4 or 5 years older than me, and they had just got their license. My sister and Becky both gotten their license. My sister's name was Teresa, and Becky was her friend. Mm-hmm. And Becky had gotten this little car and came down to invite my sister to go riding around. Mm-hmm. Well, my sister was busy. She had to clean the house. So Becky asked me to go. Mm-hmm. So I'm just a little kid. I said, yeah, let's go. So she drives me up on top of the knobs where it's kind of a little scenic overlook. You look down on the lights of the city, right? It was weird, but when we got up there, she had a little purse between us, and she set it down on the floorboard. She told me to scoot over beside her. And she had on like a little denim mini skirt, and she lifted it up and showed me she didn't have no panties on. And she told me to play with her pussy and shit like that. So I started, I'm a little kid, but I'm thinking it's cool,
How old were you? How old were you?
I was like, 10 or 11 at the oldest. Like I said, my sister and them, they had already gotten their license, so I guess they was 4 or 5 years older than me.
So what happened?
I think you got your license at 15 and a half back in. She takes me up there and shows me she ain't got no panties on. She's telling me to start playing with her pussy. And of course, I had a brother that was like 18 or 19 at the time, and he's telling me about all these girls he's had sex with and shit. But I'm a little kid, I ain't never had no shit like that. Mm-hmm. But I'm feeling like I'm cool now because she's asking me to play with this pussy and shit. So I'm thinking I'm cool. Well, she tells me to crawl in the back seat. I crawl over the back seat. She crawls over the back seat. And I take my little pants off, and she starts lying on my little cock and starts sucking on it and stuff like that. And then she kind of grabs my face and tells me to get down on the floorboard, and she pulls my face into her pussy, and it smells really bad. I mean, it's pretty rotten, but I try to back off, right? And she tells me that she's going to call me a trigger, because, I mean, even when she would come over to the house during the day, she was always grabbing up me and stuff like that, I mean, this is before this even happened. She was just a weird girl, but my dad caught her in bed and my sister's bed having sex. He came home early from work, and he caught her in my sister's bed having sex with some dude named Carter Young, and she was having sex in my sister's bed, and my dad run them off. If my old man was around still, he could attest to the type of her. You know, she was just so a tramp.
So you think a lot of these you think a lot of these behaviors could have began by you being molested at 10, 11, 12 years old?
I don't know that it did, but I can't explain any other reason why I would have started doing shit like that, you know?
Okay. Well, listen, man, it has been great talking to you as always, and I am waiting for you to not only get off of lockdown, but your visitation comes back so I can come visit you.